Hi again everyone, my name is Psyche and I'm back with another Giant Panda habitat speed build. This one was originally recorded on my Twitch livestream and I have uploaded the full video. It's about 2 hours long, so if you want to see it built in real time you can do that with all of my stupid commentary and interacting with chat and everything, and you can also see how long it takes me to do everything. But this is the speed build version of it, so if you'd like to see it a little bit quicker, this is the one for you. You will have to excuse me. You will see me talking to my chat, making silly facial expressions which look all the more silly in high speed. And I also do take a lot of breaks to sip my coffee, but it is kind of my lifeblood when I'm streaming, so I'm sure you understand. I did actually start this build on a previous stream and realized that I was really unhappy with it, which is why you see me deleting some buildings that were already there and then putting them back in and changing them around a little bit. The bridge was what I wanted to build around. I'm not really sure that was the right decision, but it's what we went with for this one, and you will see how I dealt with that throughout the video. I have recently started using null barriers a lot more to try and use the construction items that are available so that we can do slightly more varied builds instead of just using the barriers that already exist. So that's what I'm doing here, and I add in, at the moment I'm using glass barriers, but I have started in other builds that I've done recently to use just glass walls that are available through various packs that you can research, which has been pretty interesting. But for now I'm just using the glass barriers that already exist and then connecting them to the null barriers inside the walls. As you can see, I kind of built this whole building slightly off center, as we've started saying a lot in my stream, a bit wonky. That's because I haven't really quite learned how paths work yet. I'm kind of getting used to it now. I'm starting to learn that angle snap is your friend. Please use it. It's really great. But at the time I didn't really know that it was a thing. I didn't know that I could change the actual angle of a path in a way that was more accurate than I had been doing. And also, while I had been assigning paths to grids, which is pretty useful when you're trying to connect them to buildings, I didn't know that the width of 4 was ideal for things like that. Shout out to Swarn for that, because they told me that in chat and it was really, really helpful. Now you see these pillars that I've added here for flavor. They come back to bite me in the ass a little bit later, because I feel like I shouldn't spoil it. You'll see how they come back to bite me in the ass later, repeatedly, and I didn't notice until it was too late, but you'll understand. We fix it, don't worry. Also, boop. I will give you a hint as to where things went wrong. It's right about here when I start adding the pillars to the glass. That's the only hint you're getting. If you weren't there for the live stream, I'll let you guess. I have a really bad habit of, for some reason, duplicating stuff instead of just using advanced move. I don't know why. Anyway, I went back to trying to finish off just the barrier, getting the null barrier in behind the wall. It always makes me a little bit nervous whenever I can see it, because I remember in beta having a problem where animals would step just outside the null barrier while they were still technically inside the walls, and that counted as them being escaped, although that does seem to have happened a lot less. I don't know if that's a bug that was fixed or if I've just got better at placing null barriers, but it does seem to have stopped happening to me, so that's good. Now we're just going to go around to the front and add in the glass for that side. And of course, got to take a sip of coffee. Have a little think about what I'm doing next. I still, at this point, had no idea what I wanted the build to look like. And then I remembered that I didn't have a habitat gate in, so that's what I'm doing here. At this point, I was just still trying to figure out what did I actually want this building to look like. I knew I wanted it to be a shelter of some sort, but I didn't know what to do with it and how to make it look good, and I really wanted it to look pretty. I'm also clearly very satisfied with myself for managing to hide the habitat gate so well, which is probably a little bit sad. Now we're just going back around to the front and adding a few finishing touches, because I hadn't finished adding all of the columns, and then coming back around to put windows in. I didn't really want to leave them as frames, just in case the pandas are not super lazy and decided they were going to go out. And then put a floor in, and then decided I didn't want a floor anymore, so I deleted it and took another sip of coffee. At this point, I'm still looking at this building and thinking, what the heck am I going to do with it? So I started scrolling through the East Asia props and building materials just to see what kind of things were open for us. Added a few more columns. I really like these little red columns with the stone blocks on the top. And yeah, another sip of coffee, because of course. And that's when I started discovering all of these little bits and pieces. I experimented with things, liked it, decided I didn't like it. You know, I tested everything out, looked at all of them, gushed over how pretty they were. They're really pretty. Added a few bits of awnings on the back. I don't think bits of awnings is the right way to say that, but as we all know, I'm not very good at speaking English at the best of times. And then, of course, another sip of coffee before we continue. I'm beginning to wonder if we should just have a coffee count on my stream or on my videos. How many times does Psyche sip her coffee while trying to think? Now we're adding a roof, and I wasn't sure how I wanted this to look. I'm actually kind of happy with the way it turned out. I had a few options. There are a couple of different things you can put in for a midpoint of an Asian style roof. We decided to go with a more flat middle point in the end, but first I added a couple of the roof trims, at which point I was getting very excited because things were starting to come together. Got rid of the awning, was very happy about that. Tested a few different things out around the top, found one of the preset roofs, wasn't really sure I could make that work. Thought about maybe just trying to decorate the top bit, and that's when Jinx suggested in chat that we do something in the middle, like a kind of flat on either side and then a roof pointed in the middle, which is what we decided we were gonna do. So now I'm just adding a flat base for that to go in, and we added some shorter walls. You can do a kind of tiered building, which I've started experimenting with, but here it was a little bit more simple. Added the prefab sort of mid roof, and then looked at a couple of the different pieces that are there before deciding that I was going to just settle on something a little bit more simple for the decoration on the top. Still fiddling around with the advanced controls, which I have got a lot better at, but at the time I was still kind of trying to get it right, especially because I had made the entire habitat on a slight offset, so it was kind of wonky, a bit wonky, if you will. Now we have our intense thinking face on while we scroll through all of the different props and things, and that's when I found windows and got very excited, and then I gushed over the doors a little bit. I can't help it. I just think that there's been so much effort that's been put into all of these different pieces, and I'm really excited, and building with them is just a real pleasure. And I know that sounds silly, but it makes me really happy, and I've been enjoying it a lot. So you'll probably see me gushing over several things when I'm playing this game, and I appreciate the amount of time and thought and research that has gone into making everything, including the props, the animals, everything. It's a delight. It's a real delight. In fact, this is the face of someone who can see that the plan is coming together. And I was getting very excited at this point, especially because I found random bits and pieces like little carts and posters and paintings and things, and I was like, oh, I can see where this is going. And there's so much more I could have done, and I have new ideas all the time for what we could have done for Giant Panda habitat, and I probably will do another one, to be perfectly honest. I hope you don't mind. I swear this is not going to become a Giant Panda channel. At least I don't think it is. So here we're just doing the terrain modifications, so like painting all of the different things. I did want to get my pandas in here. I also decided I was going to put my bell in from before. You remember the temple bell from my last video? So I decided I was going to do that. I do want to make some more complex props and things that we can add to habitats so that I don't have to keep building them from scratch. But building them from scratch has been really fun as well, so that's not too bad. I'm painting most of the terrain here from memory from the last couple of Giant Panda habitats that I've already had. So I remember that they needed to have some soil and a little bit less long grass. Some short grass is good. And I'm just going around and making sure that I have a good base to start with for whenever I do move them in. And then we get to the nature part, and you'll all remember that I have a thing for rocks. So here we go with the putting rocks around things. And I was making jokes about this on stream because everybody noticed it in the last video. I know I made a joke about it in the video, but everyone was like, yep, you sure do love your rocks. And I do. And that's why here you'll see me putting them all down. I love lining paths with them. I think they look a lot better than using any of the prefab stuff. And I don't know. I think they add a little bit of character. So that's what I'm doing. Once again, we're adding as many rocks as we can possibly fit into a habitat. So we're just going to line a little path that goes from the temple bell round to the little temple shelter that we've built for our pandas. And it's, you know, I'm using the same rock cladding over and over again, but I do feel like if you just do a little bit of tweaking, it can look pretty natural, and it doesn't have to be perfectly natural, so I'm not being too picky about it. But this is absolutely, without a doubt, my favorite part. I love making habitats look pretty and appealing and also natural, and I am an absolute fiend for symmetry, and I really do. I find symmetry incredibly important. You'll probably see it in a lot of my habitats. They end up being like this, where they have like two halves or whatever, but I'm trying to get better at doing different things, because let's be honest, while nature can be symmetrical a lot of the time, most of the time it's not. And usually we have, you know, different trees in different configurations, and we'll have rocks that don't look exactly perfect, and we'll have trees and plants that don't look exactly perfect. So I like trying to challenge myself to not make something that looks super uniform every single time, because it's actually really hard for me. Whenever I'm making a building, it always, well, almost always ends up being quite square. I'm trying to get better at doing things a little bit differently. I know that everyone has like that building type or that habitat type that I'm sure they gravitate towards. I don't think it's just me, but for me it's definitely squares and boxes. So I'm trying to get better at not just having squares and boxes of things, and making sure that I put different types of plants in different places, and that I don't just have the same plants everywhere, and that it's not an exact mirror image of the opposite side of the path and things like that. Just while I'm putting down the cherry blossom here, something I mentioned in my last video was that I wasn't sure of the prevalence of cherry blossoms in China. I had encountered them here in Northern Ireland where I'm from, but again, I didn't know anything about where they naturally occur. I didn't know if they were something that would pop up a lot in China naturally, and I wasn't sure about whether or not I should be including them a lot in a panda habitat. So we did a little bit of research, and it turns out they're actually a lot more widely distributed than I thought. They occur naturally in, at the very least, Japan, Taiwan, Korea, mainland China, Nepal, India, Pakistan, Afghanistan, Iran, Myanmar, Thailand, and West Siberia. There are a lot of different varieties. We're not really surprised by that. And they are considered one of the two national flowers of Japan. The other one would be the chrysanthemum, which is incredibly hard to say. So I can put them in the habitat, and I did. I also need to put a little bit more bamboo in, because again, you know, pandas, they like their bamboo, they eat their bamboo. It's kind of a thing. Now I'm just adding a few extra props and bits and pieces just for decoration. I did really want to get some picnic tables in here. I don't know why. They weren't going to fit. They have to be on a path, and there were no paths in there. But I gave it a try anyway. I added a few baskets and then a couple of little scroll paintings that you can see from outside the habitat, as well as some bedding for the pandas so that they can go into that little sort of shelter area and relax and rest. And then I realized I really needed to top the walls because the walls looked a bit bare. This was a bit of an ordeal. I didn't expect it to be an ordeal. I didn't remember that there were corner pieces that I could use here until much later, and had to modify that as I went. It was mostly difficult because of groups. I still haven't really figured out how to use groups, and the fact that groups are created automatically whenever you build something is becoming a little bit of a problem for me. Also, during this build, I didn't think about using angle snap to rotate any building pieces, which has actually again become really useful for me, because now I can snap's the wrong word. Now I can rotate them at a very set angle, which makes it a lot easier for me to get things more exact, especially whenever they are on a like straight plane. So that is something that I've been using a lot more now, but wasn't when I was doing this. So I'm just going around the wall and adding the roof pieces. Now these are just roof trims, and then I've added a little bit on top to try and kind of hide the connection, well, the lack of connection. So I did this, and it took me a little while, and I did have to do a lot of modifications just to add the corner. Someone pointed it out right about here. Because I'm not editing a specific group, it doesn't snap automatically. Again, if this was on the grid correctly and I hadn't built it a bit wonky, then it would have been a lot easier to get this part working. Because I did it kind of weird and off center and a bit wonky, it didn't really make it easy for me. So that took me a little bit longer than I expected. At this point, I thought I was finished with the roof trim, and then realized I hadn't done the back side and I hadn't done the bits under the bridge, and I was just regretting all my life choices. Not because it's not because it's bad, like the building tools are fantastic and I really enjoy them, but because I just can't seem to work with groups. I don't know what it is. Also, it's worth noting there is an inner corner you can use here, and I didn't use it, and I don't know why. But at this point I was like, you know what, I want to finish this habitat, and I want to get into doing all of the fun stuff. And I want my pandas to be in the habitat, and I don't care about making it like absolutely perfect. I just want it to be nice and pretty. So that's when I started sending my pandas over and adding the essential bits and pieces like the feeding and the water and all of the enrichment. I have already got quite a bit of research done. Random segue to show you me gushing over baby red pandas. I thought I cut this from the video, but apparently I didn't. And then I decided to leave it in because y'all deserve to see how stupid I look whenever baby animals are born in this game. And now, finally, we add some bamboo. I wasn't really sure which bamboo type to use. There's the Bengal bamboo and the fountain bamboo. I think I end up using both, but I wanted to line the walls so that they weren't super, I guess, flat and empty. And then I added a few bits and pieces outside the habitat. Looked at how cute the panda was. Realized I'd planted a couple of cherry blossoms as bushes instead of as trees by mistake. And went back and fixed that. And then I found out that I'd forgotten part of the roof again. And was just like, you know what? I don't need that negativity in my life. You also may have noticed that I checked the bamboo there. That was me checking for the climbable tag. There are certain trees that are climbable, and if you put them too close to a wall, I believe it is possible for animals to escape. I think my red panda actually did. So make sure you double check that. Also worth noting that if you have climbable trees inside your habitat, they count towards your climbable stat in the habitat. So if you have an animal that needs some climbable things, that will work too. Although it is worth having some climbing frames as well. And now the final pieces of roof trim are going in. Finally. And I just put the finishing touches on. Oh, wait, yeah, nope, that's right. There's more back there, and I'm just determined to shirk my responsibilities, but I will finish it. I really thought that was the end. I'm sorry. So we're back to trying to put the roofs up, and this one for some reason just wouldn't behave, but I eventually just added everything in. It was all good, and I wasn't sure what to do with the corners here. It was tough to try and decide what made the most sense, but I decided to go with something we'd already used because I think it looks more cohesive that way, so that's what we went with. And then just leaving off the last corner because of the building already being there, it didn't really make sense to add anything extra. And I just, yeah, that's when I found these little weird, I don't really know what they are. They're a decoration, but I feel like they fit really well on top of these pillars. Now I'm just modifying the path a little bit. Again, I do feel like pathing was something that got a lot easier for me recently. I was still struggling just a little bit with it here, and I think it's a lot easier now that I kind of know what I'm doing with angle snap and with the grid, and it would have been a lot easier if I had had that in mind in the first place. But you know what? It is what it is. This is my franchise zoo. I'm just kind of keeping it going. And we've expanded a lot. I love it. And eventually I will probably start a new one, and I'll bring with me all the knowledge that I have now and hopefully make a better one. I love how the pandas scratch their belly and lick their belly. It's so adorable. Here I'm just looking through the window while I pick up a mate for our panda who was called Pseudo at the time. Pseudo lived to a ripe old age and ended up passing away of old age, which I take that as a kind of, you know, a badge of honor if an animal lives that long. Oh, and here we go, Pseudo the troublemaker. Pseudo has escaped. Now you might realize, perhaps this is what I meant by the pillars giving me a little bit of a problem earlier on. That would be correct. The pillars are climbable. You remember that climbable tag? I didn't realize that was a thing at the time. Yeah, the pillars are climbable, and Pseudo discovered this and decided that she was just going to escape over and over and over again. Again, right here, I wasn't sure. It was Jinx in chat who said maybe the pillars were part of the problem. I still thought it was the null barriers, that maybe I had put them in the wrong place, or maybe there was a gap. I just couldn't figure out how Pseudo was repeatedly escaping. So I went back in with you know, big thought face on again and tried to modify everything. Looked at this and thought, oh God, that's so ugly. There's no way I can make my habitat look like that. It's just not after all the work I've put in. And at this point, there was mild panic starting to set in. But we decided, after much experimentation with everything, double checking, was it connected, trying to figure out if maybe I just needed a little bit of extra glass. I still am not 100% convinced that the glass part didn't help. I feel like it might have. But this is when I discovered that, yeah, you know what? Maybe we should be looking at these pillars. Let's watch and see what happens. I'm spying on Pseudo, but I'm determined that, yes, fixing my barriers has definitely resolved the issue. Absolutely. Let's look at moving in our other panda. And I'm just here, you know, adding the finishing touches, adding a little lamp, maybe another little lamp, finishing my vet research. Oh my goodness, Pseudo's escaped again. You little ninja panda. And that's when I realized that that absolutely had not fixed the issue. And Pseudo was just absolutely a troublemaker. We're still going to blame Pseudo for that because clearly it's Pseudo's fault. Pseudo is a naughty panda. So I went over here again to check on my other habitats, and lo and behold, Pseudo escaped again. At this point, I was like, all right, I'm really worried. I'm beginning to feel like the habitat might be broken, and I've just put so much time into it. But that Jinx reminded me that she said that the pillars might be a problem. So we moved them out, and I wasn't sure if it was going to work, but I very meticulously went, as one of the pandas is staring at the pillar like, yes, I think I'm going to leave. And you know what? It worked. And they didn't escape. And we managed to finish the habitat. Look at how happy they are. That watermelon looks really good, hey? Thank you so much for joining me for another speed build. I know this one was a little bit different because it was already streamed live on Twitch, but I hope you enjoyed it anyway. I really enjoyed building this one, even though it took me about 2 or 3 hours, I think, in total. And now I have so many big, massive ideas for what I want to do differently next time. Thank you again for hanging out with me today. I really hope to see you again. If you would like to join us on our Twitch stream, I do stream Monday through Friday every week at noon GMT, and I will be playing a lot of Planet Z. And I hope to see you in the next video. Thanks so much, everybody. Have a wonderful day and enjoy the last couple of little pictures, including my panda hanging out at the temple bell. Bye.